Now we'll do that again. Okay, good evening, good morning. We are doing a lecture that was given by Rabbi Ginsburgh in Monsey, upstate New York in the United States during Hanukkah in 1995 that my husband and I facilitated and putting together along with some beautiful people, one of whom is on the Zoom with us this evening, or it's her morning really. And it's called The Menorah Vision Brings Healing and Unity. And I do want to dedicate this to the Aliyah Neshama of my only sibling and sister, Baila Yosefa Bas Anchel Yehoshua. She should have a lichtaka Gan Eden. So this is based upon the vision by the Navi Zechariah, which we read every Shabbos Hanukkah in the Haftorah. So when you'll get to it, if you're in a position where you could grab a chumash, or you could look at it afterwards, obviously, you'll remember that this is what we're talking about, is the vision that Zechariah had about the menorah in the Beit Midrash. So that's where we're going to begin. The complete holistic vision of the menorah unfolds in the Navi Zechariah's tale, which one reads in the Haftorah on Shabbos Hanukkah. What are the inner lights of this vision, which comes to teach us that the Jewish people as a whole, meaning the unity of Am Yisrael, is reflected and essentially the core of the symbol that we call the menorah in the Beit Midrash, and the continuation of the menorah, which is the Hanukkah menorah, or in Hebrew we call it the Chanukah. First, we need to understand the background of the menorah in the Beit Midrash, and then we'll continue to build this understanding as it transforms into the Hanukkah menorah. So the Torah teaches us that the menorah was beaten out of one piece of gold. What happened when they were building the Beit Midrash is that Hashem asked certain things, instructed certain things to happen, one of which was to build the illuminating light called the menorah, the 7-branched menorah in the Beit Midrash. And Moshe and it had to be made out of one piece of gold, had to be beaten. It couldn't be assembled. It couldn't happen in parts. It had to be beaten out of one huge rock of gold. And Moshe Rabbeinu could not actually really understand how to do this. And in the end, God instructed Moshe to do something and basically put it into fire. And it was actually Hashem who performed the miracle of the menorah being built. But we learn that the menorah is beaten out of one piece of gold, a miracle between Hashem. Hold on one second, I have to do one more thing. Not there, here. Okay. All right. So the menorah was beaten out of one piece of gold, a miracle between Hashem and Moshe, his servant, one single piece of gold. And this was meant to show us that the unity and oneness of the menorah, which symbolizes the branches of all Am Yisrael, is meant to be a unity, is meant to actually be a oneness. In other words, the fact that it was beaten out of one piece of gold and it wasn't assembled in parts, and it has 7 branches. And we know that 7 signifies the 7 levels of the emotional attributes of all of Jews for all time, what are called the midos, from chesed into malchut, right? So that's what the 7-branch menorah stands for. We'll get a little bit more to that in the continuation. But the fact that it was made from one piece of gold is in order to indicate and teach us that the menorah is uniquely about oneness and unity. And it symbolizes this unity in the sense that the 7 branches of the menorah actually stand for the root souls of all of Am Yisrael, all Jews for all time, eternally. So there is of the 7 branches, there is a branch, there is a cup that held the oil in the menorah that Aaron HaKohen lit that stands for Chesed. And there are root souls that come from that branch, from Chesed. And the second cup of oil that Aaron lit stands for Gevurah. And there are root souls that come from Gevurah. And it continues throughout the 7 branches of the menorah. All souls, all Jewish souls for all time come from one of the branches of the menorah that was beaten and made by Moshe Rabbeinu in the miracle of Hashem from one piece of gold. And the menorah in the Beit Midrash had 7 cups of oil burning light. And we know that Aaron HaKohen was chosen to be the one to carry out the holy Kedusha task, the duty to be able to clean the menorah and light the menorah in the Beit Midrash. And why was it Aaron? Because Aaron symbolizes a level of shalom, of bringing together, of uniting together and bringing together all the souls and helping to make peace between them. He was Rodef Shalom. He was the peacemaker. And he had the ability to do this in a very high level, godly way. And so his task was to light the menorah. And in doing so, that already teaches us, because he was the one that lit the menorah, and he's the unity maker, he's the Rodef Shalom, he's the one that brings peace and unity between all Jews, even in paradoxically opposite situations. So he was the one that lit the menorah because his task was to unite all the root souls of Am Yisrael. Right? So it had 7 cups burning, the menorah in the Beit Midrash. And these 7, as we said, represent the 7 root souls of all of Am Yisrael. Aaron HaKohen was chosen by Hashem to clean, prepare, and light the menorah, to ignite the flames of Am Yisrael's soul in unity, in unification, in oneness. Aaron's essence is about creating Achdut energy, bringing people together in shalom, true shalom, in the unification even of opposites. Therefore, Aaron was able to unify into one the 7 root souls of all of Am Yisrael. How it says that oil is actually energy. We know that oil is a form of energy. And that oil was used to create light, illumination. Okay? Now, through the lesson of Zechariah's vision, this is what we're going to learn about in a moment. What was that vision of the Navi? We just talked about what the menorah was in the Beit Midrash, but what was the vision of the Navi that will help us to understand the truth that each of us are inter-included. Each of us are part of a whole great unity, meaning that each one is responsible and is a guarantor for all other Jews, even if you don't know them, and certainly if you do know them. We're all interrelated, inter-included. So let's talk about this vision. You'll have to put your artistic painting cap on to be able to see this, but I'm sure all of you can do it. So in the vision, there's the menorah in the Beit Midrash. First, you have to see that 7-branched menorah, right? It's large, it's in a courtyard, and it is shining its lights out into the exterior of the world, starting with Yerushalayim. Above the Beit Midrash, in Zechariah's vision, there's a gold bowl, a vessel, a very large bowl, floating above the menorah. And above the bowl, there are 2 fully grown, alive, real olive trees, one to the right, one to the left. All right? So we have in the highest supernal realms, if you would be standing in the Beit Midrash and you had Zechariah's vision and you were on the ground, you would see the menorah. Then you would see this very large keli bowl. And then above the bowl, you would see 2 live olive trees. And what was happening? Each of these olive trees were called the Abba, the father, and the Ima, the mother. And they were pouring, the trees were pouring out a shefa of oil. In other words, the olives were just like dripping shefa, channels of oil out of them. And where was that oil flowing? It was actually flowing into the bowl from the trees. So the vision of the Navi is that he's seeing the oil flowing from the olive trees into the vessel, the bowl, that's hovering over the menorah. But it's very specific what's happening in the vision. So the oil is landing from the trees, the Abba and the Ima tree, right, in the bowl. And then the oil is being channeled out into each one of the 7 branches of the menorah. So you could see from the bowl, there would be an actual flow, like a little stream or a river of oil going out from the bowl to the cup of the menorah that represents Chesed, and to the cup of the menorah that's Tiferet, and to the cup of the menorah that's Yesod, to each cup, but not one channel of oil, but to each cup. The bowl was flowing 7 channels of oil into each cup. So the bowl had the miracle from the olive trees and the oil that dripped from the olive trees to be able to bring out 7 channels, literally 7 separate channels of oil to each one of the 7 cups in the menorah. So in Chesed, there were 7 channels of oil entering into Chesed in the menorah. And in Gevurah, there were another different, still from the same bowl, 7 channels of oil entering into Gevurah. And this went on throughout the whole menorah. So you can figure it out, it's easy math. 7 times 7 means that there were 49 channels of oil flowing from the bowl into the menorah. This was the vision that Zechariah saw. Obviously, not anyone or everyone going into the Beit Midrash who was privileged to see the menorah, maybe even including Aaron, but we don't know about that, saw that. They just saw the menorah. But in this vision of the...
Can I interrupt you? Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I got the 2 olive trees and I got them flowing down into the bowl, but I lost you when there's 7 channels into each midah, into each of the menorah.
In the menorah.
Yeah.
So this was part of the vision that Zechariah had. He saw that from the bowl, there was flowing out, obviously by a miracle, because there wasn't a channel for it to flow out, just from a very large golden bowl floating above the menorah, there would be these channels of oil, 7 of them from the bowl that would go only into the first cup.
So there were 49 little sprouts out of the bowl.
Right. But they were in groups of 7, 7 to Chesed, 7 to Gevurah, right. 7 to Tiferet.
So 49 coming out of the bowl like a sieve almost, but directed.
Well, actually, it says that they weren't falling out of the bottom, not through the bowl. They were like overflowing the top, almost like well springs.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it is you definitely have to have good powers of imagination for this. I've drawn a number of pictures. I won't show them now. Maybe I will later. Okay. So let's just go back into the text. Okay. So Zechariah saw the vision rising or floating above the Beit Midrash menorah. There were 2 fully grown olive trees to the right and left of the bowl, Abba and Ima, with a shefa of olive oil flowing from the trees into the bowl, into the golden bowl above the menorah. And from the bowl, there were 7 channels of each one flowing into each one of the 7 lights of the menorah, each one a sphera, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, etc. These were 7 channels that came out into each cup of light and directly brought the oil, the essence from the olive trees into each of the root souls, which were symbolized by the cups in the menorah. So actually we counted, there are 7 times 7. There are 49 channels, maybe well springs is a good word to use, of oil flowing from the olive trees into the receptacle, the keli, the bowl, the vessel that was floating above the menorah, and then well springing out into each one of the root souls. So this vision of Zechariah obviously brings us into a visual picture, a holistic visual picture of the menorah that we're certainly not aware of unless we read the Haftarah and had it interpreted maybe by Rabbi Ginsburgh as to what really was going on in that vision, are a visual prophecy, a nevuah, of the fact that the menorah, not only just because it was beaten out of one single piece of gold, but this is the greatest aspect of it, that the menorah is the symbol, the essential symbol of unification of all of Am Yisrael for all time. Because those 7 levels of oil, which we'll speak a little bit more about what oil is, are all going into the menorah. Aaron HaKohen is lighting that oil of every possible combination of soul that exists in Am Yisrael. Keep hold of that number 49. It should ring a bell for you. We'll get to that in a moment also. Right, so this is a complete inter-inclusion of all the aspect and character traits of Am Yisrael. This was the vision of our Navi Zechariah, total inclusion, consideration, and wholeness of Am Yisrael that happened in the menorah in the Beit Midrash. Now we know that Chassidus teaches us that a person's mitzvot are the oil on their head. That's what the mitzvot are called, are the oil. Oil represents essence, as in the one of the last sichos taught by the Rebbe, where it says that we were crushed for the light. And that means the essence of us, the oil, is crushed in order to get out the light. Wine, grapes are squeezed, but to get olive oil out of an olive, the olive has to be crushed under tremendous pressure in order to extract the liquid from it. So it's called crushed for the light. The essence of each and every Jew's potential is to illuminate godliness in the world. And the interesting thing is what one of the maybe hidden points we could bring out is that the circumstances of Am Yisrael and Jews throughout all of history, and even now, while we're speaking now, is that we are indeed crushed for the light. We are indeed in a situation where we are crushed in order to bring out a tremendous, great pouring of light and godliness into the world under the most unusual circumstances, and to be able to illuminate the world on the outside and also illuminate ourselves, right, with godliness. So that's the essence of the oil. The essence of each and every Jew's potential is to illuminate godliness in the world. We are those 7 root souls that resided at some point as we were birthed into the world inside those cups in the menorah of the olive oil. The Navi's vision in the Shabbos Hanukkah Haftarah concludes with Zechariah being shown the cornerstone of the Beit Midrash, which symbolizes the keter or crown, and that is likened to actually a person's skull, right? The skull that surrounds our brain, that's what keter crown is. This cornerstone afterwards becomes hidden and it becomes the foundation stone. And the vision of Zechariah ends with shouts of this sentence, Chen, chen lach, grace, grace to her. And may we grace the Shekhinah with our actions. That's what that part of the vision is about, is that we become empowered to grace the Shekhinah with what we do. Let's go back to this light of the menorah. Now, we know that there was hidden light in the creation, right? At the beginning of creation, there was the Or Haganuz, the holy light of creation that shone for exactly 36 hours. And in those 36 hours, a lot happened, but there was a point at which God saw that the light might be misused in the future, and so that light was hidden. And if you watched my other video, you'll find out where it was hidden, but we won't hold you in suspense in case you didn't. It's actually said through many parts of the Zohar and Midrashim and tractates that the light of the Or HaGanuz is hidden in the flames of the Hanukkah menorah. And that's why we're only allowed to gaze upon them during the 8 days of Hanukkah and nights. We're not allowed to use the light for any light purposes to illuminate rooms. You always have to have a light on in your room, even in the middle of the night when the flames are burning. But we're meant to gaze upon them because the light of the menorah is extremely healing and potent and powerful. It is the light that's called the original light of creation, or Haganuz. So that's where the hidden light of creation went to. It went from the menorah in the Beit Midrash, and it reappears each year in the holiday that we call Hanukkah from our Chanukah. Now, Rabbi Ginsburgh teaches us that Hanukkah is the Yom Tov, is the Chag, is the Jewish celebration yearly of the level of beauty that's called grace, chen. Now, we just said that the end of Zechariah's vision ends in shouts of chen, chen lach, grace, grace to her, which is a reference to the Shekhinah. So what does it mean that Hanukkah is a Yom Tov of grace, of chen? There are 8 levels of beauty that are categorized within the Torah. And the 8th level of beauty is actually this one that we're talking about, chen. And it's called, in English, we would call it grace, right? And this level of beauty contains inside it all the other levels of beauty, all the other previous levels of beauty. And it's hidden in the 8 lights of Hanukkah. There's 8 levels of beauty, and they're hidden in the 8 lights of Hanukkah. And the 8th light is a level of beauty that is called symmetrical. We said already that this light is the Or HaGanuz. It's hidden in the Hanukkah flames, and they are Kodesh. We may only gaze at them and listen to their stories. Chen, the 8th level of beauty, is symmetrical. It reflects back upon itself. You could envision the menorah, or maybe also your Chanukah, which is 8 branches, 8 lights instead of 7, but both are usually similar in the sense that if you would fold it in half in the middle, certainly the one in the Beit Midrash, because you have 7s, which means you have 3 on each side and 1 in the middle. If you would fold it in half, they would match, sort of like the wings of a butterfly. It would be exactly symmetrical. And there is a sense of the symmetry of the menorah. And what that means is that, and that's why it's called chen, the 8th level of beauty. It's symmetrical, reflecting back upon itself. And this is another reference to the importance of inter-inclusion, because inter-inclusion is meant to be reflection between people in relationships, reflecting back and forth to each other, being able to do that. We'll try and pick up on that point in just a moment. And the menorah was the most beautiful, graceful aspect of the Beit Midrash. If you would go into the Beit Midrash, the most beautiful, graceful aspect of the Beit Midrash that visually was alive and happening was the actual menorah. In continuation, the 8th light of Hanukkah is also called chen, because it's the 8th level of beauty. And so therefore the 8th night, which we call Zos Hanukkah, has great depth to it, right? The 8th light is also called chen, the grace and beauty that we experience as symmetry. This 8th light is also the level that's called Malchus. perhaps teaching us to apply and internalizing these deep mystical lights of inter-inclusion during Hanukkah into our down-to-earth lives here and now in our relationships. The eighth light of Hanukkah is also called Zos Hanukkah, pointing us once again to the essential message of Hanukkah, that the essence of Hanukkah is meant to be integrity, inter-inclusion, wholeness, consideration, Avis Yisrael, Achdut Yisrael, from the inside to the outside. From the inside, we light the menorah. It's meant to shine outside. Many people have the custom all throughout the world to either put their Hanukkah menorahs in a window to shine outside. Many people in Eretz Yisrael and maybe other places in the world light them outside in their, by their front door, or even wherever you light them, the light is meant to go to the outside. How do we know this? Because of how the windows were constructed in the Beit Midrash. The windows were constructed at an angle where they were sort of in a little bit of a V shape, that the inside dimension of the window was smaller than the outside dimension, so that the light of the inside, and the light of the inside of the Beit Midrash was the menorah, was meant to shine to the outside. The emphasis was on the light going on the outside. If it was the reverse, then the windows would have been reversed. That's what the windows teach us. So the light is meant to go to the outside. And we know that also that part of the understanding of our lighting during Chanukah, which is usually goes according to Eretz Yisrael. So we're coming into the winter now, the shortest and darkest days, where there's the least amount of daylight during this time of the year. And that's when the holiday, the Untitled Chanukah, occurs, is that we're meant to light and illuminate and use that light to illuminate to the outside. That also means that we, like the root flames, remember those flames in the menorah and the oil dripping down to us, is that we are meant to be the light that's going into the exterior, the outside. We are meant to be light bringers to the outside. Let's go back to the 49 levels of the oil flowing in the vision of Zechariah, where there were 7 channels to each root soul type, into each sphera type, as such as Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, right? Each of us has a soul root, and it's one of the 7 supernal midot, and we actually need the rest of Am Yisrael to balance us in our earthly missions. Where else does the number 49 occur? You probably already thought about this. It occurs during the counting of the Omer for 49 days between Pesach and Shavuos, right? The Omer is 49 days. And during those 49 days, we are asked to look at and to fix our own emotional attributes, to inter-include in an honest and truthful way all of the other aspects of Am Yisrael, which are going to come to 49 possibilities in the inter-inclusion. In the counting of the Omer, it spells them all out. Each day when we count the Omer, it spells each level of inter-inclusion, whether it's Chesed Shel B'Chesed, or whether it's Yisod Shel B'Malchus, or whether it's Tiferet Shel B'Gevurah. It spells all the possibilities out, all 49 possibilities. And so the Omer is 49 days. And then we arrive at Shavuos, the giving of the Torah. So it was, God willing, with wholeness, with inter-inclusion, with unity. But Hanukkah also has this 49 hidden in it, which we only learned from Zechariah, the Navi's vision, that it also has the same 49 channels that we experienced during the Omer. And now the amazing miracle is that it's all compacted into 8 short nights, not 49 days to the 50th day, but 8 nights of Hanukkah, the same powerful energy of unification is manifest in a level of miracles, because we know that 8 signifies the level after nature, right? Lamaila Teva. it symbolizes miracles. That's what 8 is. If you put the number 8 and you lie it down to take a nap, so it's the symbol for infinity on its side, right? It means that you go from the level of natural into the level of miracles, above nature. And all of that happens that we're able to reach the same level of Achdut, of unification of the menorah, through the menorah rather, that we do all that work during the Omer. And during Hanukkah, it's a completely different energy. We're meant to just shine that light and absorb the Or HaGanuz and hear the stories and meditate upon what those 8 lights mean. And there's many, many, many layers and levels to them. I leave that to you. That we meditate upon the Chanukah and realize that there's a tremendous potential of unification and healing. Why healing? Okay, let's go to that. Here, if we look at the Omer, it's easy to see the display of inter-inclusion within our people. Every kind of Jew is manifest here, and we tikkun, we fix our relationships with all Jews in order to strengthen our Achdus and oneness, to receive the truth of Torah Emet. That's during Pesach to Shavuos. In truth, we must have each one revealed, meaning each other type of Jew. All Jews, all Am Yisrael, must be revealed, inter-included, and manifest in each one of us. We can't actually be whole without all of us included. The Jewish soul is called a candle. How do we establish Achdut and unity, which is the actual healing of Am Yisrael? The real healing comes when we are inter-included and when we are united. Not the same. It's not talking about sameness. We're not the same. We're meant to be quite different and all have our godly strengths and gifts that are given to us and our divine missions. But our unification is in our humility to realize that we're all created in the image of God and we all have a mission to do for God. And that mission includes the utmost Avis Yisrael, love for fellow Jews, and Achdus Yisrael, working with Jews and working for the betterment of the good of all of Am Yisrael at all times, because we cannot do it unless we are actually inter-included. And this unity is crucial. And I will just go out of the lecture and say, it's crucial now. That's what we really have to achieve in order to open up that threshold that we want to call the Geula Shlema. So we are each inter-included and responsible for every other Jew. And this is the essential bond of unconditional love and Achdus. And it's this aspect of unity that we learn from the menorah and that gets brought out again on the holiday of Hanukkah through the flames of our Chanukah, our menorah, that actually heals Am Yisrael. Actually, Rabbi Ginsburgh has said many, many times that if one gazes at the lights, and he's probably not the only one that says this, I'm sure it's like a known thing, that if you gaze at the lights of the menorah, you're meant to look at them and sit with them after you light them, that they actually are healing for your vision, your eyes, your vision, how you see, and they're actually healing for your body, for yourself. They have healing powers to them, the original lights of creation. And so we work during Hanukkah to try to capture in those 8 miraculous days, the same kind of Achdus and inter-included consideration and love of Am Yisrael and unity during the days of Hanukkah. Now, he describes Chen. Rabbi Ginsburgh describes Chen in a beautiful way, which will help us to understand not only what Chen, the level of grace as one of the levels of beauty is, but really what this inter-inclusion concept of Hanukkah is about. This is how he says it. When 2 people look at each other face to face, they need to find, experience Hashem's grace in each other. How? When 2 people look at each other face to face, they need to find and experience Hashem's grace in each other. First, I must find the you in me. I'm looking at you, and I keep looking at you, and I have to somehow discover the you that's in me, that's part of me, that I need to have be in me. I actually need you to be included into me. So I need to discover that. So the first part is I must find the you in me. And then I must speak to the me within you. This is very short and it's very, very deep. I'll just repeat it again. In order, you have two people looking at each other. This is how you find Hashem's grace, face to face. And your purpose is to find and experience Hashem's grace in each other. First, I must find the you in me. That could take time to discover that. And then I must speak. The malchus has to be speech to the me within you. Why the me within you? Because I'm always going to have more Ahavas Yisrael and forgiveness to me. I'm going to be, my forgiveness of me is going to be, I'm always going to be easier on the me. So if I'm going to speak to you, I have to be speaking to you at least as sweet as I'm speaking to myself, to the me. So I have to speak to the me within you. And he says, this is the unification of two people. It's very, very short, very deep. Now remember, the purpose of the menorah in the Beit Midrash was to shine light outward into the world and illuminate it with Hashem's grace. So then we could put the two together. We could really put the two together. What Rabbi Ginsburgh just said about face-to-face relationships really goes a long way, even in terms of when you're in community. We're all from different communities. Some of us are from the present one where I'm in Sfat, but there are a lot of people on here from other places in the world, in God's created world. And you know your community, and you have a lot of people, you have your groups in your community. So we're seeking, when we're in the community, to find Hashem's grace. We want that grace to shine into the world. Right, and that's really something that's especially potent during Hanukkah, during the 8 miraculous lights of Hanukkah. So we want to look for who they are in relationship to us, not in relationship to what they do for us or how we're friends with them or what we speak about, but essentially who they are. And why I need to discover who they are, because that's part of my missing puzzle piece. If I could really tune into like their unique creation song, I'm going to expand who I am and rediscover myself through you, through them, through my community, right? And then when I approach them, I have to approach them from the greatest level of Ahavas Yisrael, which is for myself. That's how God made us. And I have to speak in a way of malchus, of refined interaction that shows that I'm seeking to join with them in the greatest way, which is we're all equal, we're all part of Hashem's creation. And the one that we deal with the most is ourselves. The one that we're the most familiar with is ourselves. So not to intrude upon anybody, but to just be able to come from that point of view, which takes you out of the center of judgment or severity and looking at somebody as other. They're not other. No one else is other. Everyone else is me. Not to be egocentric, that sounded a little funny, but everyone else is going to make up me, is going to contribute to me. So I have to have timimus and derech eretz towards people. That's Hashem's grace in the greater world. Because the purpose of the menorah was to shine outward into the world. We're meant to shine outward. We're meant to take that light and shine it outward, that godly, graceful light. And how much more so within the relationships, since the menorah was about the root relationships of all of Am Yisrael being inter-included into one, being united, having Achdut, having Avis Israel. Just bring up that anytime you're standing with somebody, you have a little bit of a kind of feeling. Think about Aaron HaKohen lighting patiently the lights of the menorah every morning, cleaning them every morning, relighting them. Put yourself in that frame of mind, and you'll see like that person that you're hanging out with, and maybe you need to rectify something with, is part of the same menorah as you are. Part of the very same menorah being lit by Aaron HaKohen. All right. In the Navi's vision, Zechariah is explained. In the Navi's vision, Zechariah, it is explained the meaning of these words, which is the end. We didn't yet get to the end of the vision where he says, Chen Chen Lach, and he sees the vision of the stone, which is a cornerstone, the foundation stone of the Beit Midrash. So now he's going to just explain this at the end of the teaching, Rabbi Ginsburgh. In the Navi's vision, Zechariah, it is explained the meaning of these words. This is the word of Hashem, not through armies, not through might, but through spirit alone. That's at the very end of the vision, these words. The words of Hashem. Hashem says to the Zechariah, the Navi, and to all of us, not through armies, not through might, but through spirit alone. Spirit alone is God's truth, and the divine light of Torah shining through each of us. This is how we will illuminate and transform the darkness, lifting the final veil to witness the Geula Shlema. And that was sort of the end note of the lecture by Rabbi Ginsburgh on this beautiful topic called The Menorah Vision Brings Healing and Unity. And I hope that really changes when you get to read, when you come to Shabbos Hanukkah this year and you get to read Zechariah in the Haftarah. It changes your vision of what was going on. And I just want to say again that this lecture was given in the memory and for the Aliyah Neshama of my only sibling and sister, Baila Yosefa bat Anchel Yehoshua. She should really have a lichtik Gan Eden. And that we should really feel empowered. We just came out of Yud Tes Kislev and Chav Kislev. Some of us are actually maybe beginning Chav Kislev right now. So it's the morning in America. I'm sort of at the end of it, and I've been watching a lot of Rabbi Ginsburgh's video, which was translated into English. If anybody would like that link, I'm willing to send it to you. I'm going to turn off the recording so that we could ask questions or say hello. Hold on one second. And everyone should have a amazing Hanukkah Sameach, really Geula Mashiachdik. We should really see the light of Hashem. We should feel it in our lives. We should feel its healing light, and it should illuminate our lives.